G'day there everybody, it's Gary Ablett here. I'm just wanting to do a short video on something that I consider very serious, especially with the upcoming election, and that is that back with the recent voice referendum, our Prime Minister Mr Albinese told us that it was simply about improving our relationships with the Indigenous Australians and giving the Indigenous Australians a voice in Parliament, which I believe they already had anyway. But, however, the issue I'd like to discuss is that in the voice referendum, little did we know that there was far more going on behind the scenes about the voice referendum than Mr Albanese, our Prime Minister, told us. He deliberately, it would seem, has hidden the more important issues regarding the voice referendum and what the outcome would have been if the yes vote had got through. And after watching the Mike Huckabee show, Mike Huckabee is a well-known, highly respected politician in America who exposed the fact that if the yes vote had got through, 80% of our land rights, Australian land rights, would have been transferred to transnational globalists through a treaty with Indigenous Australians. And Mr Albanese, I'm not sure if Australians are aware of it, is working in with the UN, the World Economic Forum and the global elites who do not have our country's best interests at heart. And if I can just introduce you to who Claus Schwab is. Claus Schwab is the founder and CEO of the World Economic Forum. And can I just say, the establishment have gone to great lengths to hide Claus Schwab's background. But the truth is, Claus Schwab's father, I think his name was Eugene, was a supporter of the Nazi regime in the Second World War and ran an ammunitions factory, a factory that supported the Nazi regime and Adolf Hitler in the Second World War, and he won awards from the Nazi regime for being a model factory. And the point I want to make is that Eugene Schwab used slave labour. And now we have his son, Claus Schwab, founder and CEO of the World Economic Forum, claiming by 2030 you'll own nothing and be happy. Well, the truth is you'll own nothing, but you won't be happy. They want to be the lords and they want us to be the slaves. And Claus Schwab's claim by 2030 you'll own nothing and be happy is nothing more than slave labour. That they will own everything and we will own nothing. And what most people don't realise is that our Prime Minister, Mr Albanese, with these allegations that have come out from Mike Huckabee in America, if these allegations are true, and I hope for Mr Albanese's sake that they're not true, because if they are, they're bordering on treasonous. Because if the yes vote had got through, 80% of our land rights would have been transferred to the transnational globalists through a treaty with Indigenous Australians, something our Prime Minister didn't tell us about. And he's deliberately and consciously attempted to mislead and deceive the Australian people, attempting to sell out our country from under our feet without us knowing about it. And with the elections coming up, I don't think he's the right person for the job. That he would consciously and deliberately attempt to mislead and deceive the Australian people to transfer 80% of our land rights to transnational globalists through a treaty with Indigenous Australians. And I'm doing this video not because I'm one that likes doing videos, but because I find it extremely serious and something that Australian people need to know about with the coming up election, or the upcoming election. And I would like to, just basically reveal this and make Australians out there aware of who Mr Albanese really is, that he's right, he is right in with the wokes, he's right in with the UN, the World Economic Forum and the global elites, as I said earlier, who do not have our country's best interests at heart. And this is exactly what's been going on in America with the deep state. They're all in the same club and they all have the same agenda. And our Prime Minister is working in with the same people who are opposing President Trump and his team in America. And with the up and coming election, I don't think we can afford to have a Prime Minister like Mr Albanese, a woke Prime Minister, who is prepared to deliberately and consciously mislead and deceive the Australian people through that voice referendum without telling us the whole story. And thank God it never got through. But I'm saying this because I'll tell you now, they will try again. They won't give up. They will be back. And as I said, the Claus Schwab, the founder and CEO of the World Economic Forum, and his claims by 2030 you'll own nothing and be happy. We're talking about asset confiscation. That's how serious it is. They're coming for our homes, our farmlands and everything. And it's basically communism, where we own nothing and they own everything. And they're the lords and we're the slaves. And just like his father Eugene, who used slave labour, that's Claus Schwab's agenda. And our Prime Minister is working in with them. So this message is to set the alarm off to the Australian people to wake up who this man really is, what his agenda is and who he's in with. So I'd like to just leave you with that short message. And I would like also to leave you with a clip from the Mike Huckabee show. As I said, who is a well-known, highly respected politician in America, who exposed this just after the voice referendum. And he points out the ramifications if the yes vote had got through, the very things that our Prime Minister, Mr Albanese, hid from us very deliberately. He's tried to pull a shifty on us. And I am not comfortable with having a man like that leading our country. So I will leave it there, and I will leave you now with the Mike Huckabee show and a short clip from him to back up what I'm saying. And I think Mr Albanese owes the Australian people an explanation, because this is very serious. And as I say, if these allegations are true, then Mr Albanese has attempted to mislead and deceive the Australian people, and we cannot afford to have a man like that leading our country, who is in with the UN, the World Economic Forum and the global elites, whose agenda is a new world order, which is all about, like I said in the last video over 4 years ago, a new world order is all about a one world government, a one world false religion, a one world law system, and a one world money system that the Bible refers to in Revelation chapter 13, verses 16 to 18, the mark of the beast, where no one will be able to buy or sell except they have that mark. It'll be a global digital currency where they'll get rid of cash, and everyone will have to have a mark on the back of their right hand or on their forehead, or you won't be able to buy or sell. And if you can't see that coming, then you're not paying attention, because that's exactly what they're up to. So thanks for listening. I hope the Australian people will take this very seriously, because if you don't, as I say, they will be back and they will try again, and they are coming for our homes and lands, etc. And as I said, it's all about asset confiscation. And it's basically communism, where the state own everything, we own nothing, and we're just slave labour. Just like Claus Schwab's father serving the Nazi regime, using slave labour. So Claus Schwab is not everything he's made out to be, and neither is our Prime Minister. So I'll leave you with this video from Mike Huckabee, and you make up your own minds. Thank you very much for listening.
Globalist elites attempt to steal Australia. Did you hear about Australia's Voice to Parliament resolution? It was apparently brought to them courtesy of the UN, the World Economic Forum, and their own woke Prime Minister, Anthony Albanese. Fortunately, it was defeated by a large margin. Albanese supported this resolution as a way to bring about reconciliation with the indigenous people of the Australian continent. So it actually would have changed the Australian Constitution to steal the land for globalism. Understand that this isn't something that just Australians need to look out for. As the namesake would suggest, globalists like Claus Schwab are pushing this everywhere and anywhere. Here's a few of the major points of the resolution. First, it would instigate a token return of land of 80% of Australia to the indigenous people by way of the Native Title Act. By the way, this is already at 50%. This falls squarely in the globalist agenda to decolonize all nations. But the sick truth about so-called decolonization is that while it claims to be giving land back to rightful owners, all it really does is transfer power to holier-than-thou elites. Second, it would have changed the Australian Constitution to establish a controlled parallel parliament represented by a token executive indigenous voice, which the globalists, of course, would control. This sounds quite a bit like the deep state we have here in America, except, well, more streamlined. What a frightening thought. And third, as if all that wasn't bad enough, here's the really diabolical part. The resolution aimed to use this controlled indigenous voice to literally divide and conquer by ratifying a treaty confiscating stolen and sacred land, then reallocating all this land and its assets by way of a truth tribunal and the native title to the exclusive ownership of transnational globalists, a vast multinational network of mega corporations and their interests. The fact that they had thought they had enough of a grip on power in Australia to get this passed is frightening on its own. But just because they failed this time, well, doesn't mean they're going to give up. And they have more than just Australia in mind for this plan. Substack writer Stephen Reason explained that the UN globalists were coming for our farmlands, rural regions, forests, coastlines, riverways, resources, livestock, harvests, precious minerals, and metals. And they would eventually abolish our private land rights by reappropriating all of our land to themselves by the decoy of the indigenous. What he describes sounds suspiciously like the communist woke movement in America. Rather than raising up the living standards of the underprivileged, these globalists, they're striving to impose a pathological sense of egalitarianism. They envision a world in which all global citizens are rendered equal, that is, equally impoverished and equally enslaved, just like the first world has collapsed to replicate the abysmal conditions of the third world. Reason didn't mention the name George Soros and the wide open southern border in America, but then he really didn't have to. Another globalist failure to use, there were several elections around the world, including the U.S., all happening over the weekend. And as with what happened in Australia, I hope that they're an indicator that sanity is about to make a long overdue comeback.